Probably by the time I was 20, I was close to $30,000 in debt. At one point, I think I had 18, it was just short of 20 different credit cards or credit accounts open. To me, feeling good or looking good mattered more than what my income would support. You could refer to that as addiction. The issue I had is I really didn't have anything to show for it other than stuff. I would definitely fit into that category of consumerism, but my scope is limited as far as latest and greatest technology. So my consumerism is mostly with technology and how that impacts what I do. I think when you turn 18, that's when the creditors, credit card companies, whatever you want to call them, they start realizing that you're eligible. And there were tons of mail offers coming in. You know, they're like vultures. As soon as one figures out they can get blood out of you, then, the others begin to circle. With the credit cards, it went from being able to pay the balance every month to paying 50% of the balance every month down to 30% of the balance every month, and then finally the minimum payment until it just all caught up with me, and I was, struggling just to make all the minimum payments on the various credit sources that I had opened, and started getting phone calls at work, started getting phone calls on my cell phone from creditors, of course, asking, where's our money? Why aren't you paying us? It literally felt like I was going underwater, and there was nobody to hold me up above the water, or there was no way for me to keep myself above the water. At that point, I acknowledged God. I knew and believed that He existed, but that was me making my own way with, not having faith to rely on Him at all. Fortunately, during this time, I had an aunt of mine that has really had a lot of financial success in her life. I was able to spend time with her over the phone or on Skype, getting her sense of direction. I knew that she had the financial resources that I could just ask her just to help me take care of the debt that I was in. In all of her wisdom, she told me no, which is one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, is somebody telling me no. Because if she would have said yes, she would have just been prolonging my suffering. And she suggested, figuring out how to take all of these lines of credit that I had open and consolidate them all. And so then it was all up to me at that point. Unfortunately, tithing just literally wasn't possible in my mind. I gave no credit to God that if I tithed that 10% of my income before I paid anything else or considered paying anything else, that He would bless me. There was fog covering that thought up. I wasn't seeing that at all. Spiritually at that point, I just felt very far away from God. A lot of it was just song and dance, where I was doing what my parents expected, or I was doing what people in my church expected me to be, and I talked the talk, but I don't think I walked the walk. So pulling myself out was more than just paying the bills. It was a thought process change, an emotional process change, and a spiritual process change all had to take place. After I began to make some headway and change my spending habits and begin to uproot the destructive pattern I was in, I began to force myself to pray and force myself to realize that you don't really have anything else. So why not take this time to reconnect with God while you can definitely give that more of your attention. So it was definitely a good time for me to be able to reconnect with God and begin to start to develop a more enriching spiritual journey. Eventually, by 2006, most of the debt that I had accrued had been paid off. It was just a great feeling to know for me that by God's grace and by His provisioning and planning that was way better than my provisioning and planning, that I was back in the black ink. God has blessed me without a doubt through my wife. We made a commitment right from the beginning that 10% of our combined income would go back to God and would support whatever ministry we were involved in or however God was leading that giving. I am accountable for the resources I'm given, and just realizing that God is going to hold me accountable one day for how I use that. Did I use it to buy the latest and greatest iPad, or did I use it to further His kingdom? God took what was a terrible situation and used it as a long series of teachable moments for me, and ultimately turned it into good.